The wind howled over the dry fields of Vetra 9. Dust covered everything. The crops, the broken fence, and even the metal roof of Elias's farmhouse. The sun was low, glowing red like fire. Elias wiped sweat from his brow as he stood near his crops, which were already dying from the planet's harsh soil. Another bad harvest, another long night. Then he heard it, a weak sound, like a cry, like someone was whispering from the dirt. Elias turned quickly, grabbing the old plasma tool from his belt. He moved slowly toward the sound, eyes scanning the tall dry grass. At first he saw nothing. Then, movement. A figure collapsed near the edge of his field, skinny, dirty, alien. She was on her knees, one hand digging into the sand as if trying to crawl forward. Behind her, two smaller figures were clinging to her. Children. Alien children. Elias lowered the tool and stepped closer. The woman looked up. Her face was covered in dust. Her long silver hair hung in knots around her shoulders. Her skin was pale blue, cracked and dry. Her lips trembled. "Please," she whispered. "My children. They are hungry." Elias froze. He had never seen an alien woman this thin, this desperate. He had seen refugees, beggars, but not like this. There was something different in her eyes. She tried to speak again. I'll work your fields. I'll clean. I'll warm your bed if you want. Just feed them, please." The words hit Elias like a punch. He looked at the two children, no older than 6 or 7. One had tears running down his cheeks. The other lay still, barely breathing. "You don't have to say all that," Elias said quietly, stepping forward. "Come inside." The woman hesitated, then shook her head. "I must give something. No one helps for free." Elias knelt beside her. "I'm not no one. I'm Elias. And you and your kids need food, not deals." She stared at him. For a second she looked confused, like she didn't understand kindness. Then she passed out. Inside the small farmhouse, Elias placed her gently on the floor. He gave the children protein biscuits and clean water. They ate fast, like they hadn't seen food in days. The woman woke after an hour. She panicked at first, calling out for her children in a strange language. But when she saw them safe eating, she relaxed. Elias brought her water. "Drink slowly." She did, her eyes full of caution. "Why are you helping?" "You needed it," Elias said. "Simple as that." She looked down. "My name is Solari. I escaped, walked for 2 nights. No one would give food. They said, my kind deserves to starve." Elias frowned. "Who said that?" She didn't answer, just whispered. "My mate was taken, my home destroyed. I had no choice." Elias didn't ask more. He could see the pain in her face. It wasn't the right time. That night, Elias made the children a bed from old blankets. He offered Solari the couch, but she stood in the kitchen not moving. "You fed them," she said quietly. "Let me repay you. I promised I would work. I will do anything." "You don't owe me," Elias replied. She looked confused again. "You're human. Humans don't do kindness for free." "I'm a farmer," Elias said, "not a monster." For a long moment, Solari just stood there. Then slowly she sat down on the edge of the couch. Her body was shaking. "You don't understand," she whispered. "They will come. The ones who took everything from me. They hunt me. If they find me here." Elias looked at her. "Then we'll deal with that when it happens." She blinked. "You mean, you'll protect us?" "I mean," Elias said, "you and your kids are safe here. For now." Outside, the wind howled again. But inside that small house on Vetra 9, something different was happening. Not just survival. A spark of hope. A beginning. Elias woke before sunrise. The sky outside was still dark, painted with shades of blue and orange. He stood near the window sipping from a metal mug, watching the wind move across his fields like ghosts. Behind him he heard soft footsteps. Solari stood there, her silver hair freshly washed, now tied back. She wore one of Elias's old shirts, too big for her small frame. Her eyes were tired but alert. "You don't have to work today," Elias said. "Rest. You barely survived the desert." Solari stepped forward and looked out the window with him. "No," she said firmly. "I made a promise. I won't be a burden." She walked past him and headed outside, barefoot. Elias stared at the door for a moment, then followed her. She worked harder than he expected. From dawn to midday, Solari. Doug rose with bare hands, lifted tools meant for machines, and wiped sweat without complaint. Her hands bled. Her feet cracked from the dry ground. But she kept going. Elias brought her water. "You'll break yourself." She looked up at him, chest rising with each breath. "I've already been broken," she said simply. "This is nothing." Her words chilled him. He handed her a fresh cloth. "Tell me what happened to you. Maybe I can help." Solari paused, then slowly sat on the ground. The breeze blew her hair across her face as she spoke. "I belong to a noble house," she said softly. "Not by choice. They took me after my mate died in war. Said I was useful, for breeding. They gave me food if I obeyed, pain if I didn't." Elias clenched his jaw. "You escaped with your kids?" She nodded. "They wanted to take them, said they were property. I ran before they could brand them." She looked at Elias now, her voice shaking. "You're a human. Why do you care? Why don't you just use me like the others?" Elias didn't speak for a long moment, then he crouched beside her. "Because I see a mother trying to save her children, and that's not weakness. That's the strongest thing I've ever seen." Tears filled Solari's eyes. She looked away quickly. That night, she stood in the kitchen again. "I want to repay you." Elias sighed. "You already did more work than I could have done alone today." "That's not what I meant," she whispered. She stepped closer. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached out, touching his shirt. "I said I'd warm your bed. I meant it." Elias gently caught her hands. "Solari, you don't have to sell yourself. Not here, not with me." "But I have nothing else," she said, voice breaking. "No coins, no land, no skills that matter. You have your will, your courage. That matters." She stared at him like no one had ever spoken to her like that before. Then she stepped back and looked down. "I don't know how to live without being owned." Elias's voice was quiet. "Then maybe this place is where you learn." Later, Solari checked on her sleeping children. Their stomachs were full, their faces finally calm. She sat on the floor, beside them, and whispered a promise in her native tongue. Elias stood in the hallway watching. The children were healing. But Solari? She had lived like a tool for too long. Now she didn't know how to be anything else. The next morning, as Elias was preparing equipment, Solari approached him with a new look in her eyes. "Teach me," she said. "Teach you what?" "Everything," she replied. "How to plant, fix, fight, if I must." Elias raised a brow. "You expecting trouble?" "I'm expecting they'll come for me eventually," she said. "But next time I'll be ready." He nodded slowly, and from that moment their deal changed. Not survival. Training. Preparation. Solari wasn't just a guest anymore. She was becoming something else. Something strong. Something dangerous. Rain fell on Vetra 9 for the first time in months. It wasn't much, just a soft drizzle that barely touched the dry earth. But to Solari, it felt like a blessing. She stood in it silently, letting the water run down her face, washing away the dust, the sweat, and the memories that haunted her every night. From the farmhouse window, Elias watched her. She hadn't said a word since morning. She hadn't even eaten. Just worked the field in silence and stood in the rain like a statue. Something was wrong. He stepped outside, boots squelching in the wet dirt. "Solari," he said gently, "you're going to get sick." She didn't move, didn't blink. "I used to love the rain," she whispered. Back on my world, it smelled like flowers. Here it smells like metal and dust. Elias moved beside her, holding out a cloth. Come in. Dry off. You've done enough today. She finally turned to him. Her eyes were dark with something more than sadness, something heavier. I dreamed of fire last night, she said softly. Not the kind that burns fields, but the kind that burns memories. Inside the house, she finally spoke again. Do you want to know why I never scream when I hurt? She asked Elias, sitting on the floor near the small fire. It's because screaming gave them pleasure. Silence made them angry. I chose silence. Elias didn't speak. He just listened. My back has scars, she continued. Whips, hooks, heat rods, not because I did anything wrong, just because they were bored. She pulled her shirt up slightly, revealing deep, jagged marks that looked years old but never healed right. Elias felt his throat tighten. Solari, you didn't deserve that. No, she said, but my children didn't deserve to starve either. Yet here we are. She pulled her shirt down, her hands steady, her voice quiet. I hide my pain because if I feel it too much, I'll lose control, and I can't afford to break. That night, one of her children woke up crying. Solari rushed over, whispering in a soft, alien tongue. Elias stood at the door, watching her calm her little girl. The child clung to her mother, shaking from nightmares. Solari hummed something low and slow, a lullaby Elias didn't understand but felt in his bones. After the child fell back asleep, Solari stayed there, stroking her hair. Elias finally spoke. What happened to their father? Solari didn't look up. Killed. Publicly. They made me watch. Why? Because he loved me, she said. And love was a threat to their control. The next day, Elias handed her a blade. Let's start with something simple, he said. Cutting ropes. Moving fast. No fighting yet. Solari took the blade. It felt cold and strange in her hand. Why are you teaching me this? She asked. Because I don't want to see you run again, Elias said. I want to see you stand. Solari nodded. Then she slashed at the rope like it was a snake. Good, Elias said, watching her. Now again, but faster. That evening, while the children were drawing in the dirt, Solari asked a question that caught Elias off guard. If I fight back one day, if I kill the ones who hurt me, does that make me like them? Elias looked at her seriously. No. It makes you free. She stared into the fire again, quiet. I don't want to be a killer. I want to be a mother. But in this galaxy, mothers don't survive without claws. He nodded. Then let's grow them together. Later, while the stars lit the sky outside, Solari walked alone to the edge of the field. She knelt in the dirt and whispered something again in her native tongue. A prayer, a promise, a warning. And the wind carried her voice far across the empty land. Back in the farmhouse, Elias checked the locks and loaded his old rifle. He didn't know when danger would come, but he had a feeling it would come soon. Solari wasn't just healing, she was preparing, and someone out there had made the mistake of thinking she'd stay broken. The days passed quietly, too quietly. Elias had lived on Vetra 9 long enough to know silence wasn't always peace. Sometimes it meant something worse was coming. Solari sensed it too. She kept her children closer, her eyes often fixed on the sky. Every sound, a branch snapping, a hover engine humming far away, made her tense. Then, one morning, it came. Long shadow crossed the field before the sun even rose. Elias stepped outside, rifle slung on his back. A sleek, black hover transport hovered just beyond the fence. It was polished, government style, not something used by traders or farmers. From it stepped a tall alien in red armor with silver trim, clearly not a farmer. Two others followed behind him, their faces hidden under smooth helmets. The leader didn't knock. He just walked forward with slow, heavy steps and said in a cold voice, We're here for the female. Solari had already grabbed her children and was standing behind Elias. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. But her whole body was shaking. Elias didn't move. She works my land now. This is my home. The man looked at Elias like he was a worm. She is stolen property, a registered breeder from House Varlax. You're harboring a fugitive. She's a mother, Elias replied calmly. Not property, the alien sneered. That's not how the galaxy sees her. The children clung to Solari's legs. She whispered in their ears, calming them in a language only they understood. Leave, Elias said. Now. The alien ignored him. Instead, he spoke directly. To Solari, you thought you could run, that we wouldn't find you. But you forgot something, slave. Everything you birth belongs to us. That's when Solari finally spoke. Quiet, but full of steel. They are not yours. They were never yours. The man tilted his head. You always were the disobedient one. We'll enjoy correcting that again. Elias stepped forward, blocking the view. Get off my land. The alien raised one hand, and the soldier to his left aimed a shock lance. In that moment, Elias didn't think. He moved. The butt of his rifle slammed into the soldier's face. The man dropped, twitching on the dirt. The other guard raised his weapon. Too slow. Solari, faster than anyone expected, grabbed Elias's shovel and struck hard. The guard fell. With a grunt, helmet cracked. The leader hissed. You'll regret this, human. No, Elias said. You will. The black hover left the field, dragging the injured soldiers inside. But the warning had been given. They knew where Solari was now. They would come again, and next time, they wouldn't knock. That night, the house was quiet, but no one slept. Elias sat by the door, rifle ready. Solari stayed near her children, who were curled up together on a mattress by the fire. They'll be back, she whispered. I know, Elias said. I don't want to run anymore, she added. But I can't let them take my children. I'd rather die. Elias looked at her, truly looked. She wasn't the same woman he found in the dirt. She was stronger now, harder. Ready. Then we fight, he said. Together. She nodded slowly. For the first time, she had someone standing beside her. The next day, they prepared. Elias opened the old shed near the back of the farm, where he kept supplies he thought he'd never use again. Traps, spare blasters, a few security drones with dusty lenses. Solari trained harder, learning to shoot, to strike, to move without fear. Even her children began to understand. They weren't just refugees anymore. They were defending their new home. But miles away, in the shadowed corridors of House Varlax's command, Fessel, the alien leader, stood before a hollow image of Elias's farm. Send the hunters, he growled, no more warnings. The ground shook before the sky even changed. Elias stepped out of his small farmhouse and felt it, the low vibration of incoming ships. Dust danced across the soil. Animals in the fields ran. The wind carried a different kind of fear this time. Solari was already outside, her children behind her, eyes wide. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. They had come. 3 black hunter crafts descended like dark birds of prey. They didn't land on the path. They landed directly on the crops, flattening rows of hard-grown food without care. From the ships came soldiers, more this time. Heavy armor, red visors, stun guns, cuffs, and at the center of them, stepping down slowly, was the alien commander from before, his coat longer, his stare colder. No more talking, farmer, he shouted. We're taking what's ours. Elias didn't move from his place on the porch. He held his plasma rifle in one hand and rested the other on a control switch beside the door. This land is mine, he said loudly. These people are under my protection. The commander laughed. Protection? You're a dirt-growing human with a broken gun. Maybe, Elias said. But this dirt fights back. He flipped the switch. Hidden traps across the field activated. Buried turrets popped up from the ground. Elias's old drones flew from the barn roof, buzzing like hornets with deadly aim. The slavers froze. Last chance, Elias said. Leave. But they didn't. A soldier raised his gun, fired. Elias dodged and shot back. His bolt hit the soldier, in the chest, sending him flying into a pile of scorched wheat. Battle exploded. Solari grabbed a blaster and pulled her children into the small bunker they had built behind the house. Once they were safe, she turned, eyes blazing, and ran back out. She was no longer just a mother. She was a fighter. Solari moved like a shadow, fast, fierce, and silent. She used Elias's training, shot with accuracy, dodged attacks, knocked. One soldier out with the butt of her weapon and grabbed another's stun rod like it was a toy. Elias covered her from the porch. Blood ran from his arm, but he didn't stop. Every time a soldier got too close to Solari, he picked them off. But they kept coming. More kept coming. A blast hit one of his drones. Another hit the edge of the house, blowing a hole in the wall. The farm was turning into a war zone, and still, they stood. Solari was dragged down by two soldiers. One grabbed her throat. The commander stepped forward, smiling coldly. I told you this would end badly, he sneered. You should have stayed in your cage, Solari growled. Then put me back yourself. And she did something no one expected. She bit the soldier holding her, hard. He screamed. She grabbed his dropped blade and slashed upward, breaking free. With blood on her lips and fire in her eyes, she charged the commander. At the same time, Elias ran out of ammo. The last drone fell. The last trap triggered, and the field fell silent again, except for the sound of one man's boots crunching over scorched soil. The commander stood before Elias now, bruised but smiling. You're just one human, he said. Elias met his eyes. That's usually enough. But then, boom, the commander dropped. Solari stood behind him, breathing heavily, shaking with fury. Smoke rose from the weapon in her hand. She stared at Elias. I didn't want to kill again, she whispered. Elias slowly nodded. You didn't do it for revenge, you did it to protect your home. She looked down at her hands, then at him. Is that what this place is now? She asked softly. A home? Elias didn't answer with words. He just opened the door and let her walk in first. That night, the children slept soundly for the first time in weeks. Solari sat beside the fire, her body sore but her heart still beating strong. Elias cleaned his wounds and handed her a drink. She took it, but before sipping she said, Thank you for standing with me. Elias smiled faintly. No, thank you for standing. Back, and outside the quiet house the land slept too, scorched, bruised, but still standing, just like them. The sky above Vetra 9 had changed. It used to feel heavy, like something pressing down on Solari's shoulders. Now, it felt open, as if something inside her had broken free, but not in a bad way. For the first time since her escape, she could breathe without looking over her shoulder. Still, the scars didn't fade overnight. Neither did the nightmares. Solari woke before dawn, sweat clinging to her skin, her hand reaching out in panic. She had dreamed of cages again, cold walls, screaming voices, chains that bit into her wrists. She sat up, heart pounding, but stopped when she heard a soft snore beside her. Her children, safe, warm, fed, alive. She closed her eyes and placed a hand over her chest. I won't be that woman again, she whispered to herself. Never again. Later that morning, Elias found her in the field, not working the crops but training. She had taken the old plasma staff and was swinging it through the air, again and again, sweat dripping down her back. Her movements were sharp, focused. Elias didn't interrupt. He just watched. Every motion was filled with something deeper than strength. It was rage. It was love. It was survival. When she noticed him, she stopped. I want to be ready next time. There might not be a next time, Elias said. There will be, she replied firmly. Men like that don't give up. They began training more. Every day, Solari learned how to disarm weapons, how to move silently, how to fight with both hands. She practiced until her muscles ached and her feet bled. Elias gave her everything he knew, and she absorbed it like dry soil takes rain. But she wasn't becoming a soldier. She was becoming something else, something no one had expected. One evening, while her children played near the field, Solari stood by the porch sharpening a blade. Elias came up beside her. "You're pushing too hard." She didn't look at him. "Pain is nothing new." "That's not what I meant." She stopped, lowered the blade. "I don't know how to rest," she admitted. "Rest makes me remember what it felt like. To be helpless, weak, used. You're none of those things now." She turned to him. "But I was. And if I stop moving, I feel her again, that broken version of me, the one who begged." Elias gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're not her anymore." Solari closed her eyes. A tear slipped down, but she wiped it away fast. That night the children found a small animal with a broken wing near the well. They brought it to their mother. Solari held it gently, whispering something soft in her tongue. Then she looked at Elias. "Even small things deserve to be healed," she said. And Elias saw it. That same fire burning in her now was lighting something new. Compassion, not weakness, but power with purpose. Days later, a traveler arrived at the farm, an old trader with a broken rover cart. He asked for help with his engine. Elias was busy with the fields, so Solari stepped forward. "I'll fix it," she said. The trader looked surprised. "You?" She nodded, eyes calm. "I'm not just a survivor anymore." And she did fix it. Within the hour, the engine roared to life. The trader stared at her, amazed. "You're not what they say about your kind." Solari gave a small smile. "I know." As the man drove away, he whispered, "The galaxy should fear a woman like her." That evening, Elias found Solari watching the sunset alone. She looked strong, her body tall, her hands scarred. But there was peace in her eyes. "What are you thinking?" he asked. She didn't look at him. "I want to build something here, not just survive. I want this land to grow again. Not just for me, but for my children, for others like me." Elias smiled. "You sound like someone planning to stay." She turned to him, her face calm but fierce. "I'm not running anymore," she said. "I'm planting roots." And somewhere, far across the galaxy in a high court of House Varlax, a noble slammed his fist on the table. "She's alive." Another voice answered coldly, "And stronger than before." The noble narrowed his eyes. "Then we will burn the roots before they grow too deep." The stars above Vetra 9 flickered like silent warnings. Solari stood at the edge of the field she had helped revive. Crops now grew where ashes once lay. Her children laughed in the distance, chasing fireflies near the water tank. The house was repaired, the land full of life again. But her heart was uneasy. She had felt it in the wind, something coming, a chill that had nothing to do with weather. And then she saw it, lights in the sky, not stars, ships. Elias rushed outside with his old rifle. One look at Solari told him everything. "They're here," she said. He didn't ask who. They both knew. The ships didn't land this time. They circled high like vultures. One of them released a loudspeaker message that echoed across the valley. "Return, the breeder and her spawn, or we take them by force." The message repeated in 3 languages. Solari's hands trembled for a moment, but she didn't run. Instead, she called her children to her and knelt down. "I need you both to hide in the bunker, to not come out unless I say so. Do you understand?" The children looked scared, but they nodded. She kissed both of them and whispered, "Mama loves you, no matter what happens." Elias joined her by the porch. He handed her the plasma rifle he had fixed just the week before. "This land is ours now," he said. Solari looked at him, her eyes clear. "And no one takes it from us." The attack began fast. Explosions hit the edge of the field. Flames lit the crops. Drones dropped from the sky, scanning and firing. But this time, Solari was ready. She moved like lightning, darting from cover to cover, shooting drones out of the sky, shouting orders to Elias. He held the left flank, laying down fire, keeping the soldiers from reaching the house. But they were outnumbered. Badly. One ship landed, and soldiers stormed out, shields and weapons glowing. Solari charged straight at them. She moved without fear, like the fire inside her was stronger than anything outside. Shots grazed her shoulder, but she didn't stop. She knocked 2 soldiers down, grabbed a dropped blade, and fought hand to hand. Dust flew. Sparks flashed, but one soldier got too close to the house. He made it to the bunker door. He reached for it. Solari saw, and screamed. She ran faster than her body should have allowed and tackled him to the ground. He grabbed her neck. "Stupid slave," he hissed. "You'll never be free." Her voice came through gritted teeth. "I already am." She drove her blade through his armor. Silence fell. Smoke covered the land. Most of the invaders were dead or running. Solari stood in the middle of it all, her face bloodied, her body shaking, but still upright. She had defended her children, her home, herself. Later, Elias found her sitting on the porch. He had wounds, so did she, but they were alive. He sat beside her. Solari looked out at the scorched land. "They'll come again," she said quietly. "Then we'll be ready again," Elias replied. She turned to him, voice soft. "Why do you still fight for me?" Elias smiled gently. "Because I don't see you as something to be owned. I see you as something worth standing beside." She looked down, then back at him. "You once said this place was mine too, that I could learn to be more than what they made me." "You already are," he said. "You're not surviving anymore, Solari. You're leading." She reached for his hand. Their fingers touched, not out of need, not out of fear, but choice. And in that moment, there were no chains, no hunters, no masters, just 2 people, 2 fighters, 2 builders. The children came out of the bunker once the sun rose again. Solari opened her arms and smiled. They ran into her embrace. She held them close and whispered, "We have a home now, one we bled for, one we'll grow in." And Elias stood beside them, rifle resting on his shoulder, watching the horizon. This wasn't just a rescue story anymore. It was a new beginning, built not with power, but with love, fire, and a mother's will.